What's up, everybody? It's Ramen Robbie back with another video for you. It's been a while. It's been like, what, 2 months since I last made a video. Time flies. So this is basically going to be like a stopgap video because I'm sad to report that I've hardly made any progress on that video that I've been talking about for like the past 2 months. Been dragging my feet with it. So instead of waiting to finish that, which could potentially be another month, because like I said on Twitter, I don't know if you follow me on Twitter, by the way, at RamenRobbie95. Like I said on Twitter, I still have to get a new PC, and then I'm also going to be moving here relatively soon, so that could mess things up. So instead of potentially delaying it another month and having 3 months without a video, I'm going to put this out just because I need to stop the bleeding. It's been way too long. So that's what this is going to be. What I'm going to be doing here is I'm basically going to be assembling the best Browns team since 1999. Using Browns players since 99. This is going to be like a fantasy draft kind of thing. And I'm going to pick 2 players for every position. I know that's not how it really works, but that's what we're going to do here. I'm not going to factor in things like chemistry because who cares? This team is never going to see the light of day. It's all imaginary. And it's going to be similar to my tier list. If you remember on my tier list, I went off of what they did with the Browns. So for example, Miles Austin was somebody who spent most of his career and had most of his success with the Cowboys, but spent 1 season with the Browns. So obviously I'm not going to put Miles Austin on that list. So that's how it's going to work here. But yeah, this is basically going to be, once again, a fantasy draft of Browns players since 1999. And with all that said, let's get started. Okay, so first we're going to start with the quarterback position, as you could probably imagine. Now, my first pick for quarterback is, to me, it's a no-brainer, Baker Mayfield. The number 1 pick in the 2018 draft. I know it's a make-or-break year for him. I'm recording this just before the 2020 season starts. So I guess we'll find out in a couple months if he's the real deal or not. But, he got a lot of crap last year, but I kind of look at it like half glass full kind of deal. Still had 22 touchdowns, more touchdowns than picks. And I think a lot of it, like if you take away all the off-the-field drama, I think last year wouldn't have been as bad. Like the off-the-field stuff just made it seem like way worse. And then, of course, his rookie year, he throws 27 touchdowns, sets the rookie record for touchdown passes by a rookie, and he didn't even start the first 3 games. So, I mean, to me, this is a no-brainer. Baker Mayfield's going to be my first pick at quarterback. Up next, his backup. This one I went back and forth because I know a lot of people are just going to say Tim Couch because Tim Couch is probably the most popular quarterback since 1999, at least in my eyes. I mean, everybody loves him. I get comments all the time on my little Tim Couch retrospective. So I went back and forth between Tim Couch and Brian Hoyer. And I went with Brian Hoyer for my backup quarterback spot. And here's why. I have to stay true to my quarterback tier list. Remember that tier list I made about 2 months ago? I had Brian Hoyer rated higher than Tim Couch. So it wouldn't make any sense to put Tim Couch on your over Hoyer. So I went with Brian Hoyer. And Brian Hoyer was 10-6 as a starter. And, for a Browns quarterback since 1999, that's nothing short of amazing. So my 2 quarterbacks in this fantasy draft scenario are going to be Baker Mayfield and Brian Hoyer. Moving on to the running back position. Again, this one's pretty easy to me. Nick Chubb, 2008 draft pick out of Georgia. The guy has just been an absolute monster his 2 seasons in the NFL so far. It's funny, though, as amazing as he's been, both of his seasons have had very bitter endings. His rookie year in 2018, he lost his 1,000-yard season because he got tackled for a loss, like on his last carry or something. And then the end of last year, he loses the rushing title the last week of the season to Derrick Henry, which is just, that shouldn't overshadow what he's accomplished the last 2 years. Nick Chubb, I don't think I'm exaggerating. I think when it's all said and done, he'll easily go down as the 2nd greatest Browns running back of all time, behind Jim Brown, of course. And he'll probably break Jim Brown's records because Jim Brown retired so quickly. So Nick Chubb, my first pick at running back. My second pick at running back is going to be Jamal Lewis. Jamal Lewis was someone who tormented the Browns for years when he was with Baltimore. Came over to Cleveland in 2007 as a free agent. In his first year, he rushes for 1,300 yards. And before Nick Chubb in 2019, Jamal Lewis was the only running back besides Jim Brown to do that. So, I mean, hats off to Jamal Lewis. And he followed that with another 1,000-yard season in 2008. Then in 2009, just injuries and concussions caught up with him, and he retired shortly after. But to me, Jamal Lewis, kind of a no-brainer for the second-string running back. Other ones I thought about were Isaiah Crowell, but can't really think of anybody else. So the two running backs, Nick Chubb and Jamal Lewis. Moving on to tight end. At tight end, this is a controversial pick, but I'm going with Kellen Winslow Jr. If O.J. Simpson is still in the Hall of Fame, then I'm allowed to pick Kellen Winslow here. Kellen Winslow, of course, the Browns' first-round draft pick in 2004. Really highly touted out of the University of Miami. Browns traded up one pick to get him back in 2004. It would take him 3 seasons, however, to see any real action. His rookie year, he played like a game and a half, then broke his leg. Of course, he missed his second year because of that ridiculous motorcycle accident. And then in 2006, he finally got things going, and he really made a name for himself. In 2006, Kellen Winslow was one of the top tight ends in the league. I mean, back then, it was easily between Tony Gonzalez, Antonio Gates, and Kellen Winslow. So I have no problem picking Kellen Winslow here. And then, listing off the rest of his resume. 2007, he had another Pro Bowl season with the Browns. 2008, that's where the wheels kind of came off. And again, it's because of off-the-field drama. There was a lot of that nonsense going on. He won a new contract. There was a staph infection stuff where he was like attacking the Browns organization. And there's something else too, I can't remember. Then he ended up missing the last 6 games anyway, but he still posted decent numbers. I think he had like over 40 catches in 2008. But Kellen Winslow was just, in those 2 seasons, in 2006 and 2007, I mean, he proved he was worthy of the 6th pick in 2004. And keep in mind, he was playing on like one leg or one knee, whatever it was, during those years, and he was still like one of the best in the league. My favorite player as a kid, but it's a shame what happened to him after his playing career. It's a damn shame. I don't know. Is it CTE or was he always like that? Who knows? But anyway, second pick for the tight end position, Gary Barnage. I'm going Gary Barnage here. Other names I thought of were Ben Watson. Jordan Cameron. I was very surprised. I looked up Jordan Cameron's stats, and other than 2013, I think he was, I mean, like, as far as like the flashy stats that like fantasy people look at. I don't know about like blocking and all that stuff, but as far as like production and the numbers category, like he really only had like 1 great year as a tight end. I was very surprised to learn that. I thought Jordan Cameron was kind of a stud, but so I'm going with Gary Barnage here. Gary Barnage had that phenomenal season in 2015. Everybody remembers that catch when he caught the ball with his legs against the Ravens. Then he followed that with another pretty good season in 2016, and then I think just the Browns cut him for I don't know why. I guess they were trying to lose, but they cut him after that, and I think he retired. So to me, this is kind of a no-brainer. I'm going to go Gary Barnage here. So the 2 tight ends are Kellen Winslow Jr. and Gary Barnage. Moving on to the wide receiver position. First pick, Jarvis Landry. To me, this is a no-brainer. In just 2 years, this guy has just been an absolute machine. He came from Miami, where he like routinely had like over 100 catches every year. His production has technically dropped off in Cleveland, but he still gets over 80 catches. He's just not being asked to do as much. But this guy is just phenomenal. By far the most reliable receiver we have. So I have no problem going Jarvis Landry at the first pick. The second pick. This is going to be controversial. It's going to spark some debates in the comment section, I imagine. Kevin Johnson. Kevin Johnson, you heard me correct. You younger fans, I'm not talking about the cornerback the Browns signed this year. I'm talking about Kevin Johnson, the draft pick out of Syracuse in 1999. I believe he was a quarterback at Syracuse or something, and then was converted to a receiver. But anyway, he was from the Browns. He was with the Browns from 1999 to 2003. Was just very productive. I mean, look at the guy's stats. Look at his 2001 season. There is no reason that guy shouldn't have made the Pro Bowl. Like, I'm going off the top of my head here. I think 84 catches, over 1,000 yards, 9 touchdowns. Like, that's incredible. There's no reason he shouldn't have made the Pro Bowl that season. Kevin Johnson is my second receiver pick here. I don't care what anybody says. For years, he was the most dependable receiver the Browns had. And like I said, he lasted 5 seasons, which for the Browns since 99, that seems like an eternity. So my 2 receivers are Jarvis Landry, and Kevin Johnson. Now, I'm going to address the elephant in the room. I know people are going to say, what about Josh Gordon? What about Braylon Edwards? I can't pick Josh Gordon because when it's all said and done, he really only had 1 productive year with the Browns. And that was in 2013. Now, granted, it was a Hall of Fame year, Hall of Fame caliber. But, I mean, the guy was just like a circus his entire time with the Browns. And really was just kind of a weight on their shoulders most of the time, like other than 2013. I think in 2012 he was pretty good too. But I'm not going to pick Josh Gordon over Kevin Johnson. And the other pick, Braylon Edwards. I mean, Braylon, he had that great 2007 season, but other than that, was just the same thing as Josh Gordon, was just kind of a cancer. 2006, he was okay. 2005, he didn't really see the field much because he was a rookie. And in 2008 was one of the worst years I've ever seen from a Browns receiver. So yeah, that's why I'm not going to pick Gordon or Braylon Edwards here. So the 2 receivers are Jarvis Landry and Kevin Johnson. Moving on to left tackle. I mean, Joe Thomas, enough said. His backup, this one was kind of by default. I'm going to go with Ross Verba. I'm sure most of you have no idea who he is. But, I mean, when I thought about the left tackle position, there's been nobody since Joe Thomas, and I can't think of anybody before him. So I'm going to go with Ross Verba here. He lasted 9 years in the NFL. I can't even think of another one. Was Joaquin Gonzalez left tackle the Browns had? But I'm going to go my 2 left tackles, Joe Thomas and Ross Verba. Okay, moving on to left guard. First pick, Eric Steinbach. Eric Steinbach, the Browns' free agent acquisition from the Bengals in 2007. Very durable in the trenches. Was a big reason the Browns had such a good offensive line in 2007. Remember Derek Anderson was one of the least sacked quarterbacks that year. So I'm going to go Eric Steinbach. Behind Eric Steinbach, I'm going to go Joel Bitonio. Similar description here, just very durable, good in the trenches. And honestly, I mean, I can't think of another left guard. So Joel Bitonio. Moving on to the center position, Alex Mack. Alex Mack, the first round pick out of Cal in 2009. A lot of people forget he had a consecutive snap streak that lasted a long time, like very similar to Joe Thomas. I believe it lasted from his rookie year in 2009 until 2014 when he broke his leg against Pittsburgh. He was right there with Joe Thomas for having a consecutive snap streak. I don't know if it's like if that didn't happen, I don't know if he's gotten hurt again. I don't know where it would be at now. But people forget about that. And his backup, this is kind of another by default one. I'm going to go Hank Fraley. Hank Fraley was the Browns center they traded for in 2006 when they unexpectedly lost LaCharles Bentley. And I think had LaCharles Bentley stayed healthy, he'd be on this list. But I'm going to go Hank Fraley here because, again, I can't think of anybody else. I mean, J.C. Tretter's been fine, but I like Hank Fraley. I think Joe Thomas mentioned Hank Fraley in his retirement speech. I could be wrong. Another one's Jeff Fain, but, I mean, come on. So moving on to the right guard position. At right guard, my first pick is going to be Kevin Zeitler. Free agent acquisition from the Bengals in 2017. John Dorsey foolishly traded him to the Giants prior to 2019. And for the second right guard position, kind of a weird name, but I'm going to go Sean O'Hara. 3-time Pro Bowler, played with the Browns from 2000 to 2003, part of that playoff team in 2002. I think he won a Super Bowl in with the Giants in 2008 or 2007 or something like that. And he also appeared on the television show Silent Library. Just a little bit of trivia there. So I'm going to go Sean O'Hara at the second right guard position. Moving on to right tackle. First pick, Mitchell Schwartz. Mitchell Schwartz was one of Tom Heckert's better draft picks in 2012, I want to say. Really a phenomenal right tackle. What's his name? Sashi Brown foolishly got rid of him. I guess they really were trying to lose. So they got rid of him prior to 2016, I think. And I think he went over to Kansas City. But Mitchell Schwartz, no questions asked here. He's going to be my right tackle. The second right tackle, I'm going to go with Ryan Tucker. Ryan Tucker won a Super Bowl with the Rams in 1999, I believe. Was with the Browns for quite a while. I don't know if it was 2001 or 2000, or 2002, excuse me. But he was like with the Browns from about 2002 to like 2010, I think. So he was kind of banged up a lot, but when he was there, the guy was a great right tackle. When the Browns upset the Giants in Monday Night Football in 2008, Ryan Tucker, that was his first game of the year. And I remember at the time people were speculating if he was the reason the Browns were able to pull off that upset against the Giants. So my two right tackles are going to be Mitchell Schwartz and Ryan Tucker. Moving on to the fullback position. First pick, Lawrence Vickers. I think it's a no-brainer. 2006 draft pick out of Colorado, I think, or Colorado State, whatever. Guy was a stud. The only reason they got rid of him was because they were transitioning into a West Coast offense with Pat Shurmur. And, Lawrence Vickers, a no-brainer here. And the second fullback, again, another one by default. I just went Terrell Smith. I couldn't think of another fullback for the life of me. Other names were Owen Marisic, but he was a joke. And I can't even think of another one. I swear to God, they had, look this up, they had some back named Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And I can't remember if he was a fullback or a running back. And I think they also had a guy named Kirby, because whenever I play NFL Blitz 2001, I always see a guy named Kirby. So I don't know if they were running backs or fullbacks, but whatever. But I'm going to go Terrell Smith by default. So my two fullbacks here are going to be Lawrence Vickers and Terrell Smith. So that does it for the offense. Okay, switching focus to the defense. We're going to be running a 4-3 defense here just because that's what I wanted to do. So, at the left defensive end position, my first pick, a very obvious one, Myles Garrett. Enough said. My second pick at the left defensive end position is going to be Jabal Sheared. Jabal Sheared was the draft pick out of Pitt in 2011. He played 2 years at defensive end before getting moved to linebacker. I think it had to do with the regime change. And he just never was the same player, at least in my eyes. And of course, he gets picked up by New England and produces for them. Typical Browns. But yeah, I'm going to go, at left defensive end, I'm going to go Myles Garrett, obvious pick, and no explanation needed. And then Jabal Sheared. Moving over to left defensive tackle. My first pick is going to be Larry Ogunjobi, for recency's sake, and because he's been a productive player. So first pick is going to be Larry Ogunjobi. Behind him is going to be Shaun Rogers. Shaun Rogers was brought over from the Lions in 2008 in that big blockbuster deal that Phil Savage made when he traded away a bunch of draft picks and I think Lee Bodden or something to the Lions. And Shaun Rogers and along with Corey Williams were supposed to help bolster our pass rush. Didn't work out, but Shaun Rogers, he's kind of similar to Randy Moss. Like when he was trying, the guy was like one of the best defensive linemen you've ever seen. But then, he had a tendency to kind of mail it in on other plays. He was known for blocking a lot of field goals. So I'm going to go Shaun Rogers behind Larry Ogunjobi. So my two picks at left defensive tackle are Larry Ogunjobi and Shaun Rogers. Moving over to right defensive tackle. My first pick is going to be Ataba Rubin. 2008 draft pick out of Iowa State, I believe. He mostly played in a 3-4 with the Browns. He's always at nose tackle, but here I'm just going to put him at right defensive tackle. He was kind of all over the place. I looked at his Pro Football Reference page. He played every position, it seems like. but I'm going to put him at right defensive tackle. And he lasted quite a while with the Browns. I could be wrong, but 2008 to 2012, 2013 maybe. He lasted quite a while, but anyway. And behind him, I'm going to go Orpheus Roy. This was another kind of by default one. I struggled with the depth on a lot of these defensive positions because it's just, I don't know, it was just harder to think of people for some reason. I'm going to go Orpheus Roy. He also played with Pittsburgh. He played with the Browns from, I want to say, 2002 to 2007. Obviously on the playoff team. I mean, he made it that long. He lasted a regime change. So, I mean, I'll be honest, I was a kid back then. I didn't watch football as, like, intelligently as I do now, so I can't really break down his game. But if he lasted that long, I think he must have been a fine player. I'm going to go Orpheus Roy at the second right defensive tackle position. Moving on to right defensive end. My first pick, and again, this is, like I said, it was harder to think of people. I'm going to go Robert Smith. Robert Smith was brought in from the Titans in 2007. I don't remember how long he lasted here. I know he was here in 2008, maybe 09 and 10, I don't remember. But he seemed like a serviceable player. So I'm going to go Robert Smith. And behind him, again, by default, Courtney Brown. Now, I know Courtney Brown is a huge draft bust. Everybody thinks of Courtney Brown as a huge failure. And he is, let's be honest. But, you know, when he was healthy, the guy showed you why he was the first overall pick in the 2000 draft. I mean, the guy was a monster. I think that's what Myles Garrett, or I think he could have been like what Myles Garrett is. But it didn't work out, obviously. But I mean, I'm sure other names are like, Kenyon Coleman was I don't know if he was a right defensive end, but I don't know. When I was making this list, it was hard to think of people. So I'm going to go Courtney Brown. Moving on to the linebackers. My first linebacker is going to be Jameer Miller. Jameer Miller, for the longest time, was the Browns' only Pro Bowler. I want to say from like 1999 to 2007. He was the only Pro Bowler that the Browns had during that 9-year stretch. Incredible. It was in 2001, I'm pretty sure. Unfortunately, Jameer Miller got injured in the preseason in 2002 and never played in the NFL again. That seems to happen to Browns players. They suffer some injury and then never see the light of day again. Two examples are Charles Bentley and Gary Baxter. But yeah, where am I at here? Jameer Miller. And going back to his Pro Bowl selection, I think back then it was a lot harder to make the Pro Bowl. Like nowadays, it's like baseball. Like they pick a player from every team. It's all about parity. But back then, if your team was bad, you weren't going to make a Pro Bowl. Or you weren't going to have like any Pro Bowlers. So that's how you can explain the Browns not having Pro Bowlers from 99 to 07. Then, of course, in 07, they had 6. But yeah, Jameer Miller is going to be my first linebacker pick. Behind him, this is kind of premature, I'm going to go Mack Wilson. Mack Wilson was John Dorsey's pick out of Alabama in 2019. We haven't seen much from him, only 1 year, but I love this guy's attitude, I love his work ethic. Nobody's going to outwork him. I remember a bright spot of the 49ers massacre this past year was Mack Wilson like tackling somebody, like speared him, and they lost like 5 or 6 yards. So I'm going to go Mack Wilson. Moving on to middle linebacker. To review the two linebackers, Jameer Miller and Mack Wilson. So those are the two linebackers. All right, moving on to middle linebacker. Dequelle Jackson is going to be my first pick. To me, another no-brainer. He was the Browns' like team captain on defense for a long-ass time. I think he led the league in tackles in 2008. The guy was, he lasted several regimes. He lasted the Crennel regime, Mangini, Shermer, and at the beginning of Chubb. Or the beginning of, I guess Chubb's 1 year. So first pick is Dequelle Jackson. Behind him, we're going to go Joe Schobert. Joe Schobert, of course, departed this past offseason to Jacksonville. Kind of, a lot of people were sad to see him go, but I think he was just asking for too much money at the end of the day. The guy was a workhorse. You remember that first Pittsburgh game in 2019? We showed you why he was a Pro Bowler for the Browns. And Schobert was also the bright spot of that of that 0-16 season. He was the Browns Pro Bowler in 2017. So the two linebackers are going to be two middle linebackers are going to be Dequel Jackson and Joe Schobert. At the other linebacker position, we're going to go Christian Kirksey for the first pick, third-round draft pick out of Iowa, I think, in 2014. Pretty productive player with the Browns. The last couple of years, the injury bug got him. It seemed like he was never on the field, but Christian Kirksey, I have no problem picking as the first linebacker. He really won me over in a 2015 game against the Bengals. I think might have been Jeremy Hill or somebody for the Bengals jumped in the dog pound, and then when he jumped out, Christian Kirksey was right in his face. I love that. So Christian Kirksey's the first linebacker. Second linebacker, I'm going to go Andre Davis, the 2002 draft pick out of Florida. Lasted 7 years or 7 seasons with the Browns, 2002 to 2008. I think I think 2003 was his best statistical season. I think he was a leader on defense for a while. The guy was a productive player. I'm going to go Andre Davis at the second linebacker position. So to review the linebackers, Christian Kirksey and Andre Davis. Moving on to the cornerback position. To me, the first position, this is kind of a no-brainer again, Joe Hayden. Joe Hayden was the Browns' first-round draft pick out of Florida in 2010. For about 4 or 5 years, the guy was a shutdown corner. He was up there with like one of the best corners in the game. But then the injury bug got him. Similar to Christian Kirksey, it seemed like he was never on the field, like towards the end of his tenure with the Browns. And of course, the Browns cut ties with him in 2017. So I'm going to go Joe Hayden at the first cornerback position. His backup, I'm going to go Anthony Henry. Anthony Henry was Browns cornerback, I want to say 2001 to 2004, during the Butch Davis era. He had 10 interceptions in 2001, which has to be the franchise record still, because I don't remember a Browns defensive back having 10 picks since then. And I'm going to go Anthony Henry. Moving on to the other cornerback position, this one's kind of another no-brainer. Denzel Ward, the 4th overall pick out of Ohio State in the 2018 draft. Had a phenomenal rookie season. 2019, I thought he got a little too much crap. People are saying, like, oh, this guy's always concussed. I'm worried about him. He's not performing as well. And people were basing that off of, like, that he didn't have any interceptions. But everybody knows that stat's, like, not a way to judge a cornerback. It's pretty irrelevant, honestly. Because you can be a phenomenal defensive back and just have bad hands or something. But yeah, I mean, I think another reason people were kind of down on him is because like he was shutting guys down, like nobody was throwing his way. So you just didn't hear his name much during the broadcast. But first pick's gonna be Denzel Ward. Behind him, I'm gonna go Lee Bodden. And the only reason I'm gonna pick Lee Bodden is because Chad Johnson always says Lee Bodden was like his toughest opponent on the field. Like he said Lee Bodden was able to shut him down. Not shut him down, but give him trouble, get in his head a little bit. And you look up Chad Johnson's footwork. Chad Johnson's footwork is just like the most amazing thing I've ever seen. So to be able to shut a guy like that down is saying something. So the two cornerbacks are Denzel Ward and Lee Bodden. Moving on to the safety position. First pick here is Dante Whitner. Dante Whitner was brought over pretty much to replace TJ Ward in 2014. He ended up making the Pro Bowl that season, so that went into this decision. I can't remember how long he lasted. I think he was only here another season in 2015. I don't think he was here in 2016. I'm pretty sure he wasn't. But, local guy out of Ohio State, we're going to go Dante Whitner at the first safety position. Now for his backup, this one, I honestly flipped a coin between two guys. And the two guys were Rodney Poole and Sean Jones, both from the Romeo Crennel era. Now, I flipped the coin and it landed on Rodney Poole, so I went with Rodney Poole here. But Sean Jones shouldn't be forgotten about. I think he had back-to-back seasons with 5 picks. He's pretty good in coverage. I know I'm contradicting myself because I just said picks don't matter, but Sean Jones was a not phenomenal, but very serviceable safety. I think he went to the Eagles after the Browns. But anyway, two safeties are Dante Whitner and Rodney Poole. At the other safety position, first pick, T.J. Ward. T.J. Ward was a second or third round draft pick in 2010 out of Oregon. The guy was just a really hard hitter. I remember seeing if you look up his highlights on YouTube, there will be some highlights from his preseason against the Packers. First preseason game against the Packers, and the guy was just like making tackles left and right. He was playing with a lot of energy. He was known for some hard hits. Look up his hit on Jordan Shipley. That was probably he would have to be suspended nowadays. I don't think he was suspended for that. I think he just got a fine, but yeah, that was a pretty egregious hit. I got to admit that. And I think it got to his head because I can't remember like another hard hit from T.J. Ward. I could be wrong. No, I think there was one. Can't think of it, but anyway, moving on. Behind T.J. Ward is Mike Adams. Mike Adams, brought over from San Francisco in 2007. Wasn't like a Pro Bowl caliber guy, but was very serviceable. Did his job. He survived several regimes, which is kind of a testament to him. Survived the Cornell regime, Mangini, and Shermer. So obviously, the guy could play. So two safeties are T.J. Ward and Mike Adams. So that does it for the defense. Moving on to special teams. Come on. Kicker, similar to Joe Thomas and Myles Garrett. I don't need an explanation. Phil Dawson, obviously. But I do want to talk about Phil Dawson because I have some semi-interesting analysis about him. Phil Dawson was a guy who got better with age. A lot of people don't realize this, but for the longest time, like his career long was only 52 yards. Like for the first almost 10 years of his time with the Browns, he wasn't like a great kicker from more than 50 yards. Like I remember there was this game against the Redskins where he had to kick a 54-yarder, and I had no confidence in him. Like, oh, he's not going to make this, and he didn't make it. But he had a breakthrough against the Ravens. Ironically, I think just a few weeks after that. Like that was like his breakthrough. He drilled a 54-yarder, and that really was the breakthrough. Then he ended up drilling a 56-yarder against the Bills not long after. I remember he made a 58-yarder against the Packers in the preseason, like not a few years after that. And then in 2011 and 2012, he was just went on these long streaks of like consecutive 50-yard field goals. The guy was just money. Got better with age. And I want to point out his 2005 season. He went 27 of 29 in 2005, and his two misses, he only missed twice. And one of them, like the wind, completely took it. And I'll have it on screen here somewhere. It was against the Titans, but the wind just completely took it. So if he didn't miss that, it's very possible he would have like finished that season with a perfect kicking record. Anyway, that's Phil Dawson. For a backup kicker, I went with Austin Cybert by default because he was pretty decent last year. And we only have 1 year to go off of, but he was pretty decent. If you take away that Pittsburgh game, he looked pretty sharp to me. I think he's had a little bit of trouble with extra points, but Austin Cybert, to me, I can't even think of anybody else. Like Billy Cundiff, not a chance. Travis Coons, I remember Travis Coons, he was the kicker in 2015. He started off like 18 for 18 or something, and that was like a franchise record. And I remember thinking, oh, this guy, he's the next Phil Dawson. Like, this guy's the real deal. But then the kick six against the Ravens happened, and he like never recovered from that or something because he didn't come back in 2016. So I don't know what happened there, but my two kickers are going to be Phil Dawson and Austin Cybert. Moving on to the punter position. This one was just incredibly hard to do because the Browns have just had a ton of amazing punters since 1999. Like, you could put all the names in a hat, pick one out, and you'd come up with a Pro Bowler. So, the first one I went with was Chris Gardaki. He was the punter in the early 2000s. He had some like really long streak where he never had a punt blocked. I don't know if it was like his entire career or something, but it was a really long streak where he never had a punt blocked. Of course, Butch Davis cuts him after 2003, and he goes to Pittsburgh. So, Chris Gardaki. And for the backup, again, I could just pull a name out of the hat. But I went with Britton Colquitt just for recency's sake. I mean, there are just so many good ones. You could say Dave Zastudil, Reggie Hodges, Spencer Lanning, Andy Lee, the guy we have now, the Scottish Hammer. It's just, you could pick anybody. So the two punters are Chris Gardaki and Britton Colquitt. At kick returner, another no explanation needed, Josh Cribbs. Now for his backup, I went with Andre Davis. Andre Davis, the receiver out of Virginia Tech. He actually had a touchdown with the Browns as a kick returner against the Texans in 2002. I think he had some other long returns that didn't go for touchdowns. Then after he left Cleveland, he actually kind of made another name for himself as a returner in Houston. I think he had 3 touchdowns. I don't know if it was in 2007, but I know with the Texans, I'm pretty sure he had 3 touchdowns as a kick returner. So I'm going to go Andre Davis for the backup kick returner. And for the punt returner, I'm going to go Dennis Northcutt. To me, it's another no-brainer. Some people will put Cribbs there. I'm going to put Northcutt. He only has 3 touchdowns as a punt returner on paper, but he was always a threat to take it the distance. And I don't know if you saw that highlight video I made of him on my highlight channel, but he had a ton of punts called back. And I'm pretty sure I didn't even include all of them. I think there are other ones. But yeah, so punt returner Dennis Northcutt. And the backup punt returner is going to be Travis Benjamin, another Tom Hecker draft pick, one of his better draft picks. I think he had 3 touchdowns with the Browns as a punt returner. I think, could be wrong. But yeah, again, he was always a threat to take it the distance, a speedster. So no brainers here. 2 punt returners are Dennis Northcutt and Travis Benjamin. And we've reached the end, folks. That is this. That is it. That's the fantasy draft of all Browns, of the best Browns players since 1999. Anyway, guys, that's going to do it for this video. Once again, I apologize for going 2 months without posting anything. That does happen from time to time. I just get caught up on other things. You know, if this was my 9 to 5, then I'd be pumping out content on the regular. That would be a dream job. People always talk about dream jobs. Imagine like driving to an office and just working on YouTube videos for 8 hours. That'd be something else. If you'd like to make that possible, please consider supporting me on Patreon. Your donations would go a long way. Another thing I want to touch on is a lot of you are probably wondering why I don't stream anymore. I was starting to build like a cult following of people who enjoy the stream. I miss all you guys, by the way, but I stopped streaming for 2 reasons. First reason is I only seem to get viewers when I play football games, and right now I'm just not in the mood to play Madden and 2K5. I played the shit out of those games for about 4 months. I just got kind of burnt out. And the second reason is I read that like when you live stream from your main channel, it hurts your algorithm because obviously when you live stream, you don't get as many viewers as you do when you post just a regular video. And that kind of makes sense. So, but again, I'm not sure if that's true. I read it somewhere, but it kind of made sense to me. So it's kind of, I probably won't be streaming from here much. I'm not saying I never will, but it probably won't be happening very often. But if you remember, that's why I created that Ramen Robbie streaming channel. It's links in the description. Right now it only has like 10 subscribers or something, but in a perfect world, I would like to start streaming from that channel so I don't have to worry about all that algorithm nonsense. The problem is you need 1,000 subscribers to start live streaming, so I'm a ways away from that. But if you'd like to make that possible someday, go subscribe to it right now. I also have a Twitch channel. I have about 25 followers or something, which is obviously not nearly enough. Once I get to around 100, then I'll consider streaming regularly. That'll be the benchmark, 100 followers on Twitch. Because Twitch is a lot more fun. They let you play music on stream without like shooting down your live feed, so that could really enhance the stream. So follow me on Twitch. And also follow me on Twitter at RamenRobbie95. Just follow everything that's in the description. I'll post a bunch of links. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Until next time, guys, I'm Ramen Robbie, and thanks for watching.